Sometimes we need a really low resolution character and we want to maintain the appearance as good as possible, including the opacity, which the Instalod does not normally handle. So here's a method I've come up with to preserve your opacity as well as reduce your character down to very low poly. So if I look at this character, I can see I have 76,042 triangles in the character, and I want it to be down at 15 to 20. And so to do that, there are a few steps I can take, and they're kind of a manual steps you need to do. So it's a little more complicated than just pressing a single button, but um, it starts with removing parts you don't need. So I will go ahead and um, open up my character list in the scene manager, and I'm going to get rid of things that I'm not going to see if they're down at low poly, quality and used for in a crowd scene. So the tear line I'm not going to see, the eye occlusion I'm not going to see, and the teeth I'm not going to see. Now when you use the Instalod, normally it would get rid of all that stuff for you, but because I'm kind of doing manual steps, it doesn't. So you need to get rid of these things yourself. So just select them and click delete. You cannot delete the tongue yet, so I will show you how to do that later. At this point, we're going to use our optimize and decimate tool, and we're going to choose the custom option. In this section, we're going to step through here very carefully. So starting with the skeleton, I know that I don't need the entire skeleton. I don't need twist bones for crowd characters. I may not even need any facial bones or hand bones or toe bones. So I can just click on one of these skeleton presets. And LOD1 is pretty good if you need your hand bones. But if you don't even need the hand bones, go for LOD2. I'm going to go for LOD1 in this case, in case I have some animations that use the fingers in my crowd scene or something. So that already reduces it by almost half. And then proceed on to the mesh settings. Here you want to use the polygon reduction, and you want to do by percentage. We're not using the remesher. Do the by percentage here. And I am going to set this at 20%. That works well for, that usually gets me in the ballpark where I want to be and does a pretty good job. Going to move on to textures and uncheck every box you don't need. So my character does not use reflection or glow or metallic or blend or specular or AO. I'm only going to keep the diffuse, bump, roughness, and opacity. And if you're going to convert to a traditional shader, you can even get rid of the roughness if you want. But you might end up with a little bit shiny character that you'd have to then adjust. So I'm going to leave this in here because I'm going to stick with PBR. And then on the facial, that's good. Just leave it how it is. And what you can do after you've set all these up, after you've done this a couple times and found one you like, you can go in here and create a template of your own. Notice mine says crowd underscore HQ. Now that I've selected all those options because I already saved one. I had to use the underscore. If you have a space in the name, it won't save it. So make sure if you're using multiple words that use underscore between the words. Okay, so now I will go ahead and convert. It will take a few moments. Okay, so now we're done with that. You might have seen a little switch in the color there, and now it is substantially lower poly. If I look at my selected tries, I've 15,644. Um, and then you can hide intermeshes to drop it even more. You'd have to do that manually. So, like if I went into my character here, I could then um, set um, the shirt to wireframe so I can see inside it. And then I could select the body here and go to edit mesh and then remove those extra faces, by selecting them. If you need to select through, uncheck this box. If you only need to select the visible faces that are facing you, click ignore back faces. But at this point, I can then select those interfaces and delete them down here. Um, Unlike a conventional character where you can only hide the mesh, once I've done this procedure of the basically remeshing everything, I can then delete faces. So that's how you do that. I'm not going to do that now, but what I will do is another option. I want to show you how you can lose a few more polys. Is select the hair, and if you're in a tool like Edit Mesh, you can change which thing you're editing if you select it in the scene manager, but you can't do it from just from clicking it on the scene. You have to switch by selecting the scene manager this way. Okay, see these polys here? Those are actually the scalp, and I don't actually need the scalp in here. So I'm going to select the element, and I'm going to click on one of the scalp polys, and you'll see it selected the entire scalp, and I will come down here and hit delete face. And it gave me a warning about physics, which I'm not worried about at all right now. Okay, so now I'm going to go out of Edit Mesh. You can hide the body mesh under the clothing if you want. I'm not going to worry about that right now because I'm already down to pretty low poly. If I select my entire character, I am at 15,518 polys. And now you'll notice the textures are still quite high. So if I come over in my material tab, I still have all of them. Well, I want to combine them all into one as well. And so let me open this up a little wider. And I want to click on this tool here. This is your merge material. So click that. It will open up this panel. And sometimes you may want to do just the eyes separately. So uncheck everything and just do the eye. But I'm just going to do everything all at once right now. I want my texture to be 2048, and I want a JPEG, and that's just going to bake the texture for everything but the hair. So I will go ahead and say merge. Okay, now you can see it has reduced my character down to two materials. The um, the everything basically, which I took the name of the first thing I had selected, the first thing in the list, which is the tongue. That's why it's called tongue. You can change the name if you want, but I'm not going to worry about it. And then I have the hair. And the cool thing about having the hair separate, since you can't totally combine it when you're doing this particular method, is that they can then adjust the color. So if I wanted, to have multiple of these characters in my crowd scene, but with different hair colors so they wouldn't look quite as similar, I could go ahead and change the hair color. Okay, now I mentioned that you could get rid of the tongue. At this point, after you've done that material combining, it's going to let you get rid of the tongue. So select the tongue in the scene manager, and in your attributes tab, come down, and now you can convert it to an accessory. Convert that tongue to an accessory, and then once it's an accessory, you can just press delete on your keyboard with it selected. Now I've gotten rid of that. So my overall character now is 15,401 triangles with opacity. And if I look at the character in wireframe, you'll see basically the entire thing has been remeshed. So the body mesh and all the clothing mesh, and actually even the hair mesh has, you can't quite tell when it's got the texture on it. Let me go ahead and set the hair to wireframe as well. It's a little harder to see with the hair because, you know, it's overlapping more. And the brows have as well. The brows also remain separate in this if you're using a character that has brows. So if you did this with like an older CC1 base or an older base that did not have separate brows and they were baked in, then you wouldn't, of course, have the brows there. So let me select everything and set it back to normal. So that's how you reduce your poly count for a character and maintain your opacity. All right, hope that's helpful.